The sharp crack of three-ring binders hitting the conference table echoed through the administrative building at Naval Special Warfare Command like gunfire on a range. 47 heads turned in unison. Lieutenant Commander Derek Halstead's laughter cut through the silence that followed. Grace Mallory stood at the doorway, arms full of classified briefing materials, her wireframe glasses slightly askew from the weight. 5'5", 132 pounds, navy blue pantsuit deliberately 2 sizes too large. Dark brown hair pulled into a regulation-tight bun. Sensible flats with tactical soles that nobody in that room would ever notice. It was 14:15 hours on a Tuesday afternoon. In the next 90 minutes, everything these men thought they knew would be shattered. "Well, well," Halstead said, leaning back in his chair with the confidence of a man who'd spent 8 years as a SEAL and believed that made him untouchable. 6'1", 205 pounds of muscle and arrogance packed into a dress uniform that showed off his SEAL trident like a billboard. "Look who finally made it! We've been waiting 20 minutes for those briefs, sweetheart." Grace said nothing. She moved into the room with measured steps, setting the binders down with precise spacing. 12 SEALs occupied the conference table. Another 8 admin staff members lingered near the doorway, watching. Several had their phones out already. "What's your security clearance, sweetheart?" Lieutenant Jake Portman asked from Halstead's right side. 29 years old, 5'11", 185, blonde crew cut, and a smirk that had probably worked well in college. "You even know what half these acronyms mean?" Grace's hands moved across the table, organizing documents with movements that were too efficient, too practiced. Her fingers never fumbled. She placed each binder at exact intervals, covers aligned, classification markings facing up. Master Chief Petty Officer Thomas Vickers watched from the far end of the table. 52 years old, 28 years in the Navy, weathered face that had seen 3 wars and more operations than he could count. His eyes tracked how she handled those classified materials, the specific way her thumb checked the cover page before releasing each binder. That wasn't standard admin procedure. That was something else entirely. "I'm just curious," Chief Petty Officer Rick Brennan added, his shaved head catching the fluorescent lights. 35, 6 feet even, 195, with tattoos visible beneath his rolled sleeves. "You ever held anything heavier than a stapler? These boys here just finished a 10-mile ruck, full kit. Maybe you should try carrying something real sometime." Laughter rippled, crumpled around the table. Grace continued her work. Her breathing never changed. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. The kind of respiratory control that took years to develop. "She's probably never even seen a rifle up close," Portman said, louder now, playing to his audience. "What do you do when you're not delivering our paperwork? Organize the supply closet?" Grace straightened, gathering empty folders she'd pulled from her cart. She turned toward the door without a word. "Hey," Halstead called out, "I asked you a question earlier. Your clearance level, what is it?" She paused, didn't turn around. "Secret, sir. Required for handling classified material in an administrative capacity." "Secret," Halstead repeated, drawing out the word. "So basically you read the covers and make sure pages are in order. Must be real challenging work." "Someone's got to do the jobs nobody else wants," Brennan added. Grace pushed her cart toward the hallway. The squeak of one wheel marked each rotation. She'd been meaning to fix that for 3 weeks, but somehow never got around to it. Some small part of her appreciated the warning it gave her when approaching corners. Master Chief Vickers stood. "Commander, might wanna—" "I've got this handled, Master Chief," Halstead cut him off. "We're just having a friendly conversation with our support staff, letting them know we appreciate the work they do. Isn't that right, gentlemen?" Chorus of agreements. Near the doorway, Petty Officer Second Class Amy Chen shifted uncomfortably. 24 years old, 5'6", 140, short black hair and eyes that kept darting between Grace and the SEALs. She'd only been assigned to this command for 6 weeks. Grace had helped her learn the classified material handling procedures, had been patient when she made mistakes, had covered for her when she accidentally left a safe unsecured. "Maybe we should," Amy started. "Chen, don't you have actual work to do?" Portman asked. "Or are you planning to stand there all day?" Amy's mouth closed. She looked at Grace, silently apologizing. Grace's expression didn't change. She just gave the smallest nod. Permission to leave, reassurance that no help was needed. Amy hesitated another moment, then retreated down the hallway. The conference room door swung closed behind Grace's cart. The squeaky wheel faded into the distance. "Jesus," Brennan said. "Think she even knows how to talk? I've seen her around for like 3 months, and she said maybe 10 words." "Admin types," Halstead said, returning his attention to the briefing materials Grace had delivered. "They're glorified librarians with clearances. Necessary, sure, but let's not pretend they're operators." Vickers picked up one of the binders. His fingers traced the edge where Grace's hand had been moments before. Calluses. He'd noticed them when she set down the materials. Not the soft hands of someone who pushed papers all day. These were specific calluses, the kind you got from fast roping, from weapons, from work that destroyed soft tissue and built it back harder. "You know," Vickers said carefully, "might be worth checking her full file before." "Before what, Master Chief?" Halstead's voice carried an edge now. "Before I make observations about civilian contractors doing civilian work. She's a GS9 admin coordinator. That's public record, not exactly classified information. Just seems like—" "What it seems like," Halstead interrupted, standing to his full height, "is that we've got a range demonstration for BUDS candidates at 1500 hours, and I've got better things to do than discuss the feelings of admin staff. We clear?" Vickers held his gaze for 3 seconds. 28 years of service had taught him when to push and when to wait. This wasn't the moment to push. Not yet. "Clear, sir," he said. But his eyes went to the doorway where Grace had disappeared. Something wasn't right. The way she'd moved through that room, checking corners without seeming to. The perfect posture that never slouched despite carrying 40 pounds of binders. How her eyes had tracked every person's position, maintaining awareness of all 12 seals simultaneously. And those hands, those calloused, steady hands. Down the hallway, Grace Mallory pushed her squeaky cart back toward the administrative offices. Her expression remained neutral, professional, calm. Inside, she counted her breaths. 4 in, 4 out. The way her therapist had taught her. The way she'd breathed in that hide site in Yemen for 14 hours, providing covering fire while her team bled out around her, waiting for extraction that came too late for everyone but her. 18 months since that operation. 18 months of mandatory recovery protocol. 6 more to go before her psych evaluation would even consider clearing her for operational status. She'd chosen this base specifically. Naval Medical Center San Diego was 15 minutes away. Dr. Patterson, the therapist who specialized in operator PTSD, had office hours 3 times a week. Grace reached her desk in the corner of the admin bay, set her things down with the same precise movements she'd used in the conference room, sat in her chair and opened the next file that needed processing. Her hands didn't shake. They never did, not anymore. But she touched the small device in her ear, the medical alert system that looked so much like a tactical earpiece. Just checking it was still there, still active, still connecting her to support. Report when the nightmares came at 0300 and her apartment walls closed in like that hide site in Helmand Province. The squeaky wheel on her cart finally stopped moving. Somewhere down the hall, Lieutenant Commander Halstead was already forgetting her name. 20 minutes later, Grace returned to the conference room with updated operational maps. The briefing was scheduled for 14:45 hours. She was exactly on time. The room had filled. 15 SEALs now, plus 4 officers from the intelligence section. Halstead stood at the head of the table, mid-sentence about forced deployment strategies. He stopped talking when her cart squeaked through the doorway. "Perfect timing," he said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "We were just discussing threat assessment in urban environments. You know anything about that, or should we use smaller words?" Grace moved to the display board, began mounting the maps with pushpins. Each pin placed with geometric precision, exactly 1 inch from the edge. I mean, it's pretty complicated stuff, Lieutenant Portman added, turning in his chair to watch her. Insurgent tactics, civilian population dynamics, infrastructure vulnerabilities. Probably not in your training manual, huh? Grace aligned the second map. Didn't respond. Chief Brennan reached for his coffee cup on the table's edge. His elbow caught it deliberately, sent it tumbling toward the floor. Hot coffee arced through the air. Grace's hand shot out, caught the cup 6 inches from impact. Didn't spill a drop. The room went silent for exactly 2.3 seconds. Her fingers were wrapped around the ceramic in a grip that showed white knuckles, controlled pressure, perfect weight distribution. The kind of catch that required spatial awareness most people didn't possess. Reaction time that couldn't be trained in a gym. She set the cup back on the table, returned to mounting maps. "Lucky grab," Brennan said, but his voice had changed slightly, uncertain now. "Real lucky," Halstead agreed, though his eyes had narrowed. "You play sports or something?" Grace pressed another pen into the corkboard. "No, sir." "Huh." Portman stood, walked closer to where she worked. "That was some reflex, though, like crazy fast. You take self-defense classes?" "No, sir." She reached for the third map. As she unrolled it, her sleeve rode up slightly. A half-inch of scar tissue became visible on her forearm. Not a clean surgical scar. Fragmentation pattern. The kind you got from being too close to an explosion. Master Chief Vickers saw it. His jaw tightened. Grace tugged her sleeve down, continued working. "So these maps," Halstead said, forcing the briefing back on track. "They're showing sector designations for... Wait, this label is wrong." He tapped the display. "This isn't Highway 1. That's the secondary route, designation Amber. Highway 1 is Route Silver in this operational theater." Grace paused, her hand stilled on the fourth map. "Actually, sir," she said quietly, "that route was redesignated in 2019 after the infrastructure assessment. Amber became primary when Silver was—" She stopped herself mid-sentence. Halstead stared at her. "Compromised by what?" "I misspoke, sir. I'll verify the maps with the intelligence section." "No, you said it was compromised. How do you know that?" Grace's breathing remained steady. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. "I must have read it in one of the briefing documents. I handle a lot of classified material." "That specific detail isn't in briefing documents," Lieutenant Marcus Webb said from the side of the room. 32 years old, SEAL instructor, sharp eyes that missed nothing. "That's operational knowledge, theater-specific. You'd only know that if you'd worked in that region. Or if she Googled it," Portman offered. "Lots of stuff online these days." "That operation isn't on Google," Webb said flatly. Grace finished mounting the last map, gathered her materials back onto the cart. The squeaky wheel marked time like a metronome. "I need to get back to processing the supply requisitions," she said. "Will there be anything else, sir?" Halstead studied her face, looking for something. "Where'd you work before this? Your file says prior federal service, but doesn't specify where." "Various agencies, sir. Standard administrative rotations." "That's deliberately vague." "It's what's in my public file, sir." She pushed the cart toward the door. Lieutenant Portman stepped into her path, arms crossed, 5'11" of ego and testosterone blocking her exit. "Hang on," he said. "Something's weird here. You know military route designations, you've got reflexes like an athlete, and you're being evasive about your background. What are you hiding?" "Nothing, sir. May I be excused?" Brennan stood as well. The 3 SEALs now formed a loose semicircle around her. Not quite threatening, not quite professional either. "See, the thing is," Brennan said, "we work in a classified environment. We need to trust the people around us. And right now, you're not exactly inspiring trust." Grace's hand tightened on the cart handle. Master Chief Vickers pushed back from the table, ready to intervene. "Let her through," Vickers said, his voice carrying command authority despite being outranked by Halstead. "In a minute," Halstead replied. "I want to understand something first. Grace, that's your name, right? Grace Mallory?" "Yes, sir." "You've been working here for what, 3 months?" "4 months, sir." 4 months. And in that time, you've been perfectly quiet, perfectly invisible, just pushing your cart around, delivering papers. But today, suddenly, you're catching falling objects like a ninja and dropping operational knowledge about classified theater redesignations? He stepped closer. So I'm going to ask you directly, what's your actual background? Administrative services, sir. I've told you. You're lying, Portman interrupted. I can see it. You know way more than you're saying. Grace met his eyes, held the contact for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to show she wasn't intimidated, not long enough to be insubordinate. My work history is in my file, she said. If you have concerns about my clearance or qualifications, you're welcome to submit a formal inquiry to the security office. Maybe I will, Halstead said. That's your right, sir. She moved forward. Portman held position for another moment, then stepped aside with exaggerated slowness. The cart squeaked past him into the hallway. This time, Amy Chen wasn't at the doorway. She'd taken the hint from earlier, stayed at her desk. But through the office windows, Grace could see her watching, phone in hand, worry creasing her young face. Grace pushed the cart back to the admin bay, set it against the wall, sat at her desk. Her hands still weren't shaking. Back in the conference room, Lieutenant Webb leaned toward Master Chief Vickers. That wasn't normal, he said quietly. No, Vickers agreed. It wasn't. You know something. I know that reflex pattern. I know those calluses. I know what fragmentation scars look like. Vickers stood. And I know that nobody with her skill set ends up as a GS9 admin unless they're running from something or recovering from something. You think she's former military? I think, Vickers said carefully, that I need to make a phone call. He left the conference room, headed for the administrative offices. Not toward Grace's desk, but toward the secured communication room at the end of the hall. Some conversations required privacy. Some questions went above his pay grade, but not above his conscience. Grace watched him pass through her peripheral vision, didn't turn her head, didn't react, just continued processing the supply requisition forms in front of her, her neat handwriting filling boxes with practiced efficiency. At 1:45 hours, her desk phone rang. Internal line. Mallory, she answered. This is Commander Halstead. We've got the range demonstration for BUDS candidates in 5 minutes. I need you to bring the qualification score sheets down to the outdoor range, Building 7. Sir, those are typically delivered by... I know who typically delivers them. I'm telling you to do it today. Consider it part of your professional development. See how real operators work. Silence on the line. Are you refusing a direct order? Halstead asked. Grace's fingers tightened on the phone. No, sir. I'll retrieve the documents and bring them down. Excellent. And Grace, don't take too long. Wouldn't want to keep everyone waiting again. The line went dead. Grace sat motionless for 10 seconds. Then she stood, walked to the file room, pulled the requested documents from the secured cabinet. Amy Chen appeared at her shoulder. Grace, you don't have to. It's fine, Grace said quietly. It's not fine. He's targeting you. I can take the forms down. Amy. Grace turned to face her. I appreciate it, but this is my job. I'll handle it. I'm going to record it, Amy whispered. Just in case, my phone. I'll stay back, but I'll document everything. Grace almost smiled. Almost. Do what you think is right. She gathered the score sheets, placed them in a folder, and headed for the door. The walk to Building 7 took 6 minutes. Outdoor range facilities, 3 lanes, electronic target systems. 15 BUDS candidates stood in formation. Lieutenant Commander Halstead waited near the armory window. 62 personnel had gathered. Word spread fast on a naval base. Grace approached the range with the folder held at her side. 62 faces turned toward her. BUDS candidates in formation, instructors along the fence line, off-duty SEALs who'd heard something interesting was happening. At least 20 phones were already raised. Halstead stood near the weapons rack, arms crossed, smile playing at his lips. This wasn't about qualification sheets. This was about entertainment. "Right on time," he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Gentlemen, this is Grace from admin. She's here to deliver our score sheets and maybe learn something about what we do down here at the pointy end of the spear." Scattered laughter from the crowd. Grace handed him the folder. "Your documents, sir." "Appreciated." He opened the folder, made a show of reviewing the forms. "You know what these are for?" "Pistol qualification scoring, sir." "That's right. We're about to demonstrate proper handgun technique for our candidates here. Show them what expert-level shooting looks like." He gestured toward the range. "You ever fired a weapon, Grace?" "I'd prefer to return to my duties, sir." "That's not what I asked." He pulled a Glock 19 from the armory window. "Simple question. Ever fired a pistol?" Master Chief Vickers pushed through the crowd. "Commander, this isn't. I'm providing educational context, Master Chief, showing these candidates the difference between administrative,
Preparative operational and operators. Nothing wrong with that." Halstead turned back to Grace. "So, yes or no?" Grace's eyes tracked to the weapon in his hands. Glock 19, 9mm, standard issue, 15-round magazine. She could see from the weight distribution that it was loaded. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "I've fired a pistol." "Fantastic." Halstead's smile widened. "Then you won't mind giving us a demonstration. Consider it part of today's educational program." "Sir, I don't think—" "It wasn't a request." His voice hardened. "We're all curious now. You've got reflexes, you've got knowledge, you clearly have some kind of background. So, let's see what you can actually do." The crowd pressed closer. Lieutenant Portman appeared at Halstead's shoulder, grinning. Chief Brennan leaned against the fence, arms crossed, waiting for the show. Amy Chen stood at the very back, phone raised and recording. Grace looked at the weapon, at the range, at the 62 witnesses who expected her to fail. "What are the qualification parameters, sir?" she asked. "Standard Navy pistol qualification. 25 meters, 90% accuracy for expert rating." He paused. "But let's make it interesting. 50 meters, 10 rounds, 30-second time limit. If you can hit 70%, I'll personally apologize for any disrespect you feel you've received." "And if I miss?" Grace asked. "Then you go back to your desk and stop pretending you're something you're not." Lieutenant Webb stepped forward from the instructor line. "Commander, 50 meters with a handgun is—" "Expert operators make those shots regularly, Lieutenant. Are you saying it can't be done?" "I'm saying it's an unfair standard for someone who pushes papers." "Then she should decline." Halstead extended the Glock toward Grace. "What's it going to be?" Grace stood motionless for 3 seconds. Her therapist's voice echoed in her head. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Your worth isn't measured by their approval." But this wasn't about approval. This was about respect for every person who'd ever been underestimated. Every admin specialist, every support staff member, every person dismissed because they didn't wear the right uniform or carry the right job title. She took the weapon. The crowd noise dropped by half. 50 meters downrange, 10 silhouette targets flickered on electronic rails, randomized movement patterns. Grace checked the chamber. Loaded, one in the pipe. She dropped the magazine, counted rounds by weight, reseated it with a sharp tap, racked the slide to check feed. Every movement textbook perfect. Master Chief Vickers' eyes widened slightly. That checking sequence wasn't civilian training. That was muscle memory. Grace walked to the firing line. Portman called out, "Someone get a medic ready. She's probably going to shoot her own foot." More laughter. Halstead raised his phone to record. Grace settled into her stance. Feet shoulder-width apart, slight forward lean, knees bent, arms extended in a modified isosceles that nobody in that crowd immediately recognized because it wasn't standard Navy instruction. It was competition shooting adapted for combat efficiency. Her fingers wrapped around the grip, calloused hands finding purchase points that had been worn into her skin over 12 years of service. Trigger finger indexed along the frame. She took one breath, 4 counts in, 4 counts out. "Whenever you're ready," Halstead announced. "Timer starts on first shot." Grace's eyes tracked the target pattern. Wind from the west at approximately 14 miles per hour, temperature 72 degrees. 50 meters translated to sight adjustment of her finger moved to the trigger. First shot cracked across the range. Center mass, target 3. Second shot, 0.4 seconds later, target 7. Third shot, fifth shot, 10th shot, 11.4 seconds total. The electronic scoreboard lit up. 10 hits, 10 center mass, perfect grouping within 3 inches. The crowd went completely silent. Grace engaged the safety, set the weapon on the bench, turned to face Halstead. His phone was still recording, but his hand had lowered slightly. The smile was gone. Navy expert pistol qualification is 90% at 25 meters, Lieutenant Webb said into the silence. She just shot 100% at 50 meters, in less than half the time standard. Lucky, Portman said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Wind probably pushed the shot center. Luck. Run it again, Brennan suggested. Let's see if she can repeat it. Halstead's jaw worked. He'd boxed himself into a corner. If he declined, he looked scared. If he agreed and she repeated the performance, his humiliation doubled. Different weapon, he said finally. M4 carbine, moving targets, 300 meters, iron sights only. Master Chief Vickers stepped forward. Commander, that's... Expert operators qualify at those ranges regularly, Master Chief. You said so yourself. Halstead's voice had taken on an edge. Unless you're suggesting she can't perform at that level? I'm suggesting this has gone far enough. I disagree. Halstead turned to the armory. Get me an M4, standard configuration. Grace remained at the firing line. Her breathing was still controlled. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. But something had changed in her posture. A subtle shift. The administrative coordinator was sliding away.
Something else was emerging. Lieutenant Webb leaned toward Vickers. "She's not civilian trained," he whispered. "That stance, that grouping, that's high-level competition shooting or military advanced marksmanship." "I know," Vickers replied quietly. "So who is she?" "I don't know yet, but I called it in 20 minutes ago. Admiral Lockwood is on her way." The armory tech brought out an M4A1 carbine, standard 20-round magazine, iron sights. Halstead handed it to Grace with exaggerated care, like passing explosives. 300 meters, 20 moving targets, 2-minute time limit. Standard Marine Corps rifle qualification uses a similar format at shorter ranges. Think you can handle it? Grace took the rifle, checked the chamber, inspected the sights, tested the trigger pull weight. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency that made several of the watching SEALs exchange glances. She field-stripped the magazine release to check spring tension, reassembled it in 4.2 seconds. The crowd had swelled to 80 personnel. Someone had spread word across the base. Officers appeared from administrative buildings. Training staff abandoned their schedules. This had become an event. Amy Chen's phone captured everything from the back of the crowd, her hands shaking slightly but keeping the frame steady. Grace moved to the 300-meter line. The electronic targets downrange were smaller now, moving on lateral rails in unpredictable patterns. Standard qualification used static targets at shorter distances. This was deliberately impossible. She settled into a standing position. No support, no stabilization. Just her body, the weapon, and 300 meters of California air between her and the targets. "Ready when you are," Halstead announced. "Timer starts on first shot." Grace's finger moved to the trigger. Her breathing slowed. In the scope of her focus, everything else disappeared. The crowd noise faded. The wind became data. The moving targets became mathematical problems with predictable solutions. She'd done this before. In mountains, in deserts, in places where missing meant teammates died and success meant going home. Her finger pressed through the trigger breakpoint. The first shot echoed across the range at 15:09 hours. Target 12, moving left to right at variable speed. Center mass hit. Grace worked the rifle like breathing. Shoulder pressure consistent. Cheek weld perfect. Trigger press smooth. each shot placed with mathematical precision that came from somewhere deeper than training. This was neural pathway memory, built over thousands of hours, carved into muscle and bone. Shot 7, shot 12, shot 18. 20 rounds in 47 seconds. The electronic scoreboard updated. 20 targets, 20 hits. Average grouping 2.4 inches at 300 meters with iron sights. Lieutenant Commander Halstead stared at the display like it had personally betrayed him. His phone hung loose in his grip, still recording but forgotten. "That's impossible," Lieutenant Portman said. "That's literally impossible. Marine Corps expert qualification is 80% at 200 meters with optics. She just shot perfect at 300 with irons." Grace safed the weapon, set it on the bench with the same careful precision she'd used for the pistol, turned to face the crowd. 83 personnel now. Word had spread to the headquarters building. Officers in dress uniforms mixed with SEALs in training gear. A Navy photographer had appeared from somewhere, camera raised, documenting everything. Master Chief Vickers moved to the bench, picked up the M4, inspected it like he didn't believe what he'd witnessed, checked the sights for any advantage, found nothing. Standard issue equipment, no modifications. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Lieutenant Marcus Webb asked. His voice carried no mockery now, just professional curiosity mixed with something like respect. Grace adjusted her glasses. "I've had training, sir." "That's not training, that's expertise. Competition-level marksmanship combined with combat shooting techniques." Webb stepped closer. "I've been an instructor for 6 years. I've seen Olympic shooters, special operations snipers, and every variation in between. What you just did requires thousands of hours of practice and real-world application. I take my professional development seriously, sir." "Stop lying," Halstead snapped. His face had flushed red. "Nobody shoots like that by accident. Nobody develops those skills pushing papers in an administrative office." Grace said nothing, just maintained eye contact for 3 seconds, then looked away. Submissive posture, non-threatening, everything her therapist had taught her about de-escalation. But Halstead was past de-escalation. He'd humiliated her publicly, and she'd turned it back on him in front of 80 witnesses. His career ran on reputation and dominance. She'd just stripped both away. "You know what I think?" He moved closer, invading her space. "I think you're lying about your background. I think you're faking credentials, probably stolen valor. I've seen it before. Civilians who wash out of basic training spend the rest of their lives pretending they were operators. Sir, I've never claimed. You implied it with every shot. You stood there and performed like your special operations qualified." His voice rose. "So I'm going to ask you directly, and I want the truth. And is your actual military background?" "I'm not military, sir. I'm a civilian contractor in an administrative role." "Then where did you learn those techniques?" Grace's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'm not comfortable discussing my private training, sir." "Not comfortable?" Halstead's laugh was ugly now. "You just embarrassed me and my men in front of half the base, but you're not comfortable talking about where you learned to shoot? That's convenient." Chief Brennan had moved to Halstead's side, though his expression showed uncertainty. "Commander, maybe we should what? Let this go? She could be a security risk. Someone with her skills working in our administrative section, handling classified materials?" Halstead turned to address the crowd. "Does anyone else think this is suspicious? Someone with 0 military record who shoots like Delta Force?" Lieutenant Portman raised his hand. "It's definitely weird, sir. It's more than weird. It's potentially illegal." Halstead pulled out his phone, dialed a number. "This is Lieutenant Commander Halstead at the NSW range. I need base security down here immediately. Possible credentials fraud." Grace's breathing remained steady. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. She'd known this was coming, had known from the moment she caught that coffee cup that the careful anonymity she'd built over 4 months was collapsing. "Sir," Master Chief Vickers said carefully, "you might want to wait before—" Wait for what? Wait for her to disappear? Wait for classified material to go missing? Halstead's paranoia was spiraling now, feeding on his embarrassment. She's been in our facility for 4 months with access to operational planning documents. Who knows what she's compromised? The crowd shifted uncomfortably. This had gone from entertainment to something darker. Several of the watching officers exchanged glances, uncertain whether to intervene or let it play out. Grace stood perfectly still. Her hands at her sides, no threatening gestures. But something had changed in her eyes. The administrative coordinator mask was cracking. 2 base security personnel appeared, responding to Halstead's call. Both wore military police armbands. Both looked confused about why they'd been summoned to a rifle range. "Detain her," Halstead ordered. "I'm filing formal charges of credential falsification and possible espionage." "Sir," the senior MP said hesitantly, "on what evidence?" "Evidence? She just demonstrated military-level skills that aren't in her employment record. That's evidence of deception. Being good at shooting isn't illegal, sir. It is when combined with security clearance fraud." Grace finally spoke, her voice quiet but clear. "I hold a valid. I have secret clearance, verified through the Defense Information Systems Agency. My credentials are legitimate and current. I've committed no fraud." "Then explain the skills," Halstead demanded. "I don't have to explain anything to you, sir." The words hung in the air, respectful in tone but absolute in content. She'd drawn a line. Halstead's face darkened. "You absolutely do. I'm your superior in this chain of command, and I'm ordering you to explain your background. My employment record is available through proper channels. If you have security concerns, you can submit them through the appropriate office. But I'm not required to discuss my private life or training with you. This isn't private. This is professional. My shooting skills have nothing to do with my administrative duties." Lieutenant Webb cleared his throat. "Actually, Commander, she's right. Unless there's evidence of actual wrongdoing, we can't compel her to explain personal skills." "Whose side are you on, Webb?" "I'm not on any side, sir. I'm stating regulations." Halstead rounded on him. "You saw what she did. That's not normal. That's not civilian level. Being exceptional at something isn't a crime." The senior MP was speaking quietly into his radio. Grace heard fragments. "Situation at range. Requesting guidance. Multiple witnesses." Amy Chen had moved closer through the crowd, still recording, her phone capturing every word. Grace's hand moved to her ear, touching the small device there. It looked like a tactical earpiece. Most of the crowd assumed it was. But Master Chief Vickers had been watching her carefully all afternoon. He'd seen how she touched it during stressful moments. That wasn't communications gear. That was something else. Medical alert device. He'd bet his pension on it. "I'm requesting a security review of her entire file," Halstead announced to the MPs. "Full background investigation. Polygraph. The complete process. Something's wrong here and I want answers." "That's above our authority, sir," the senior MP replied. "You'd need to submit that request through the security office with proper justification." "I just gave you justification. She demonstrated suspicious capabilities." "Sir, with respect, shooting well isn't grounds for investigation. We'd need evidence of actual policy violations or security breaches." Halstead's frustration was visible now. He'd expected compliance, intimidation to work like it always had. Instead, he'd trapped himself in a situation where regulations actually protected Grace more than him. The sound of a vehicle approaching made everyone turn. A black SUV with flag officer plates pulled up to the range entrance. 2 people emerged. Rear Admiral Patricia Lockwood. Lockwood, 51 years old,
5'7", steel gray hair in regulation style. Commander of Naval Special Warfare Group. Every SEAL on that range knew her reputation. Beside her, a civilian in a suit. Pentagon credentials visible on his badge. Master Chief Vickers straightened to attention. He'd made the call 25 minutes ago. The Admiral had responded faster than he'd expected. Lockwood surveyed the scene with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen 3 decades of military complications. Her gaze swept across the crowd, the weapons on the bench, the scoreboards still displaying Grace's perfect scores, and finally landed on Grace herself. "Someone want to explain," Lockwood said calmly, "why I'm receiving emergency calls about a security incident at my range?" Halstead stepped forward. "Ma'am, I discovered a civilian contractor with suspicious capabilities. She's been working in our administrative section with classified access, but just demonstrated military-level marksmanship that doesn't match her employment record. I believe she's falsified her credentials." Lockwood's expression didn't change. "What's her name?" "Grace Mallory, ma'am, GS-9 Administrative Coordinator." For the first time, something flickered across the Admiral's face. Recognition, quickly masked. "Mallory," she repeated. "Grace Mallory." "Yes, ma'am." Lockwood turned to her civilian companion. "Check the system." The man pulled out a tablet, fingers moving rapidly across the screen. His security credentials gave him access to databases beyond standard personnel files. "Grace Ann Mallory," he read. "Current employment, GS-9 Administrative Coordinator, Naval Special Warfare Command. Clearance level, secret for document handling." He paused. "Prior employment record shows federal service, but details are redacted. Accessing secondary system." The civilian consultant's fingers paused over his tablet. His eyes widened fractionally. "Ma'am, I need to access JWICs for the complete file. This is showing compartmented access." Admiral Lockwood's expression remained neutral. "Do it." He tapped in security codes, biometric verification, accessing the Joint Worldwide Intelligence Communication System, the secure network that held operational records for classified programs. Lieutenant Commander Halstead watched with growing confidence. "Ma'am, whatever that system shows, I maintain that her presence here represents—" "Commander," Lockwood interrupted, her voice carrying the kind of authority that ended conversations, "you'll speak when I ask you a question." Halstead's mouth closed. The consultant's face had gone carefully blank, the expression of someone reading information that changed everything. "Admiral, I'm going to need to clear this area. This file is TS/SCI with special compartmented protocols. Read me the clearance level first," Lockwood ordered. "Top secret, sensitive compartmented information. Multiple code word accesses. Special Activities Division protocols." He looked up. "Ma'am, only 15 people on this base have clearance to even know this file exists." A ripple went through the crowd. TS/SCI clearance wasn't something admin coordinators possessed. That was intelligence officers, special operations commanders, people who worked in the shadows of national security. "Everyone without top-secret SCI clearance, clear this area immediately," Lockwood commanded. "This is now a closed briefing. Military police, establish a perimeter at 50 meters." The crowd fractured. Roughly 65 people began moving toward the exit. Buds candidates, junior SEALs, administrative staff. Amy Chen looked back at Grace once before the MPs directed her away, her phone finally lowering. Lieutenant Portman hesitated. "Ma'am, I'm part of this investigation." "What's your clearance level, Lieutenant?" "Secret, ma'am." "Then you're dismissed." Portman left, frustration evident in every step. Chief Brennan followed without being asked. He knew how classification worked. When the exodus finished, 18 people remained. Admiral Lockwood, the consultant, Master Chief Vickers, Lieutenant Webb, 3 senior SEAL team commanders, 2 intelligence officers, and a handful of others with the requisite clearances. Lieutenant Commander Halstead remained,
his top-secret clearance keeping him in the circle. But his confident expression had developed cracks. Grace stood alone near the shooting bench, hands at her sides, breathing controlled. Waiting. "Read the file," Lockwood told the consultant. "Relevant portions only." The man consulted his tablet. Grace Ann Mallory, age 34, Naval Academy graduate, class of 2012. Commissioned as intelligence officer. Initial assignment, Naval Intelligence Command. Transferred to Special Activities Division Liaison Program in 2018. Halstead's face drained of color. Service record includes deployments to classified locations in support of Joint Special Operations taskings. Embedded with DevGRU, 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, and CIA Special Activity Center personnel. The consultant paused. Combat action in Yemen 2023. Operation classified. Team of 6 personnel conducting intelligence gathering. Ambushed by hostile forces. 5 killed in action. Subject sustained injuries, but held defensive position for 14 hours, providing sniper cover and calling in close air support until extraction. The remaining SEALs exchanged glances. Yemen 2023. They'd heard. Rumors about that operation, an intelligence team torn apart in the mountains. Sole survivor who'd held off an entire insurgent cell alone. Decorations, the consultant continued. Silver Star for gallantry in action, Bronze Star with Valor device, 2 Purple Hearts, Navy Commendation Medal, Combat Action Ribbon. He looked up from the screen. Current status, administrative leave, assigned to light duty pending psychological evaluation. Cleared for non-operational work while maintaining active clearances for consulting purposes. The silence stretched for 5 full seconds. Admiral Lockwood turned to Grace. "Commander Mallory, what is your current operational status?" Grace came to attention. Muscle memory taking over, the administrative coordinator disappearing entirely. "Administrative leave, ma'am, cleared for light duty only. Month 18 of 24 mandatory recovery protocol." "Commander?" Halstead's voice cracked slightly on the word. Lockwood ignored him. "You're assigned to the administrative section by choice?" "Yes, ma'am. Dr. Patterson at Naval Medical Center San Diego is supervising my recovery. I requested duty at this location for proximity to ongoing treatment." "And you maintained your cover even when publicly challenged?" "I had no authorization to discuss my service record without proper clearance verification, ma'am. Classification protocols prevented disclosure." Lockwood nodded slowly. "You followed operational security procedures correctly." She turned to face Halstead. "Commander, do you understand what you've just done?" Halstead's mouth opened. Closed. "Ma'am, I didn't know." "You challenged a decorated combat veteran. You accused her of stolen valor. You demanded she explain skills that were earned through 6 years of Special Activities Division operations." Lockwood's voice remained level, but each word landed like a hammer. "You did this publicly, in front of 83 witnesses, while she was attempting to maintain operational security." "Ma'am, her file showed GS9 admin. There was nothing to indicate—" "Her cover was intentional. She's recovering from severe trauma while maintaining active clearances for classified consulting. That requires anonymity." Lockwood gestured to the tablet. "You just compromised her operational security because your ego couldn't handle being outshot." Master Chief Vickers had moved to stand beside Grace, not protectively, respectfully, recognizing what she was. Lieutenant Webb spoke quietly. "The shooting techniques, those were special activities methods. I should have recognized them." "You weren't supposed to recognize them. That's the point of operational security." Halstead tried again. "Ma'am, with respect, if she has that background, why wasn't I informed? We're working in a classified environment. I should have known." "You had no need to know," the consultant interrupted. "Commander Mallory's service record is compartmented specifically to protect her and ongoing operations she supported. Your clearance level gives you access to tactical information, not personnel backgrounds of former special activities liaisons. But she was in my building, handling my briefing materials. She has higher clearance than you do, Commander, Lockwood said flatly. She was authorized to handle those materials. You weren't authorized to know why. The full weight of his mistake was settling on Halstead now. He'd challenged someone 4 levels above his classification access, had accused her of fraud when she was legitimately credentialed beyond his ability to verify, had forced her into demonstrations that revealed skills she was trying to keep hidden for operational and medical reasons. I want everyone remaining here to understand something, Lockwood announced to the group. What you've learned in the last 10 minutes is classified top secret SCI. You will not discuss Commander Mallory's background with anyone lacking proper clearance. You will not reference this incident in unofficial communications. If I find out anyone has compromised her operational security further, I will personally ensure your clearance is revoked and your career ends. Acknowledgements rippled through the group. Lockwood turned back to Grace. Commander, I apologize for this situation. Your cover should have been better protected. It was adequate, ma'am. I made choices that revealed my capabilities. You were forced into an impossible situation. Lockwood's expression softened fractionally. How are you managing? Dr. Patterson indicated you were making progress. Grace's composure wavered for just a moment, the first crack in the armor all afternoon. I'm managing, ma'am. Today was difficult, but manageable. Do you need to contact your support network? Grace touched the device in her ear. I have resources available, ma'am. Lockwood noticed the gesture. Understood. That's a medical alert device, not comms equipment. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Patterson's recommendation. Several of the SEALs exchanged glances. They'd assumed tactical gear. The reality was more human, more vulnerable. Commander Halstead, Lockwood said, her voice returning to formal command tone. You are hereby relieved of instructor duties effective immediately, pending investigation under Article 92, Uniform Code of Military Justice, for failure to follow proper procedures. You will report to the Staff Judge Advocate Office at 0800 tomorrow. Dismissed. Halstead's face went rigid. Ma'am, I was following protocol for suspicious. You were following your ego. There's a difference. Dismissed, Commander. Halstead saluted stiffly, turned, walked toward the range exit with 18 pairs of eyes tracking his departure. When he was gone, Lockwood addressed the remaining personnel. Everyone else is dismissed except Master Chief Vickers and Lieutenant Webb. This briefing is concluded. The group dispersed, conversation already starting in hushed tones. The story would spread, within proper classification channels, but it would spread. Soon only 5 remained. Lockwood, the consultant, Vickers, Webb, and Grace. Master Chief, Lockwood said, I understand you contacted my office. Yes, ma'am. I recognized the signs, thought someone should verify before this escalated further. Good instinct. If you'd called 10 minutes earlier, we might have prevented this entirely. Yes, ma'am, my apologies. Nothing to apologize for. You tried to stop it. She turned to Webb. Lieutenant, your comments about regulations protecting Commander Mallory were correct. Thank you. Just doing my job, ma'am. Lockwood checked her watch. It's 16:35 hours. Commander Mallory, take the rest of the day. Report to my office at 0900 tomorrow. We need to discuss what happens next. Grace stood at attention. Ma'am, if I may ask, what happens next regarding my administrative position? Admiral Lockwood studied her for a long moment. That depends. Do you want to keep it? Yes, ma'am. The work helps. The routine. The distance from operations. Grace's voice remained steady, but something vulnerable flickered beneath. I'm not ready to go back. Maybe I never will be. Dr. Patterson indicated you've made significant progress. She believes you'll complete the recovery protocol successfully. Progress isn't the same as ready, ma'am. Lockwood nodded slowly. Understood. We'll discuss options tomorrow. For now, go home. That's an order." Grace saluted, turned toward the range exit. Master Chief Vickers fell into step beside her. "Commander," he said quietly as they walked, "for what it's worth, you handled that with more discipline than most operators I've known. Staying silent under that pressure, that took strength." "Or cowardice," replied. "I could have ended it earlier, shown credentials, stopped the escalation. You followed classification protocols. Nothing cowardly about that." They reached the parking area. Grace's 10-year-old Honda Civic sat in the civilian section, deliberately unremarkable among the trucks and sports cars. The Master Chief paused. "The Yemen operation. I read the after-action report. Classified summary came through instructor channels." L's as a lessons learned document. No names attached, but the details. He met her eyes. 14 hours alone, 5 teammates down. You called in danger-close airstrikes on your own position twice. Grace's hand tightened on her car keys. "I did what the mission required. You did what most people couldn't, and you've been carrying it alone ever since. That's what the therapy is for, Master Chief. Therapy helps, so does being around people who understand." He handed her a card. "That's my contact information. You ever need someone to talk to who gets it, someone with clearance to actually discuss what you've been through, call me. Anytime." Grace took the card. Studied it for 3 seconds. "Thank you, Master Chief. Tom. Off duty, it's Tom. Grace. I know." He smiled slightly. "Though I suppose I should call you Commander." "Please don't. Grace is fine. I'm trying to be just Grace these days." She got in her car, drove through the base gates, made it 3 miles down Coronado Boulevard before her hands started shaking. She pulled into a beach parking lot, empty this late in the afternoon on a Tuesday, grabbed her phone with trembling fingers, pressed the emergency contact button on her medical alert app. 2 rings. "Grace?" Dr. Patterson's voice, calm and familiar. "What's happening?" "I had an incident. At work. I'm safe, but I need to talk." "Where are you?" "Beach parking lot. Silver Strand. Are you in immediate danger?" "No, just processing." "Can you do the grounding exercise we practiced?" Grace closed her eyes. 5 things she could see. The ocean through her windshield. Pelican on a piling. Clouds. Her own reflection in the rearview mirror. The steering wheel. 4 things she could touch. The seat beneath her. Keys in her hand. Seatbelt across her chest. Phone against her ear. 3 things she could hear. Waves. Distant traffic. Her own breathing. 2 things she could smell. Salt air through the cracked window. Vinyl upholstery. 1 thing she could taste. The coffee she'd had at lunch, hours ago now. Her breathing steadied. The shaking reduced. "Better," she said. "Tell me what happened." Grace described it. The conference room humiliation. The range challenge. The forced demonstrations. The revelation. All of it spilling out in clinical detail, because clinical was safe. Clinical kept emotion at a distance. "And how do you feel about it?" Dr. Patterson asked when she finished. "Exposed. Like I've lost something I needed. Your anonymity. My normal. For 4 months, I was just Grace, who delivers papers and processes supply forms. Now I'm Commander Mallory again. The survivor. The one everyone knows about. Is that what you're afraid of? Being known?" Grace Ace watched the Pelican dive for fish. "I'm afraid of being defined by the worst day of my life. Everywhere I go, people see the medals and the operation, and they think that's who I am. But I'm the person who survived when 5 better people died. That's not heroism. That's just luck. We've discussed survivor's guilt extensively, Grace. You know intellectually that's not accurate. Knowing and feeling are different things. They are, but you're doing the work to align them." Dr. Patterson's voice softened. "What you did today, maintaining operational security under extreme pressure, controlling your responses, protecting classified information, that was the discipline you've built over 12 years of service. You should be proud. I just wanted to be invisible." "I know, but invisible isn't always healthy. Sometimes being seen is part of healing." Grace watched the ocean for 30 seconds. Waves rolling in with mathematical regularity. Predictable. Unlike everything else. "I have to go to the Admiral's office tomorrow morning," she said, "to discuss what happens next." "What do you want to happen?" "I want to keep my admin job. I want people to forget what they saw today. I want to go back to being normal. That's not possible now. The question is, what's the new normal going to be?" Grace didn't have an answer. She talked with Dr. Patterson for another 20 minutes, made an appointment for Thursday morning, moving up her regular Friday session, promised to use her coping skills if the anxiety spiked, finally ended the call. By the time she drove home to her small apartment in Imperial Beach, the sun was setting. 1847 hours. The day had lasted a lifetime. Inside, she changed out of her pantsuit into civilian clothes, made tea she didn't drink, sat on her couch staring at the coffee table where 5 photographs watched her, her team, the ones who didn't make it out of Yemen. Lieutenant Nathan Cross, 32, Intel analyst, 2 kids back home. He died first, sniper round through the chest while setting up the observation post. Petty Officer Sarah Kim, 27, communication specialist, engaged to be married, bled out from fragmentation wounds while Grace held pressure on injuries too severe to survive. Chief Warrant Officer David Mills, 41, technical operations, 20 years in service, took 3 rounds covering their retreat to the backup position. Sergeant First Class Maria Torres, 35, liaison from Army Intelligence, fluent in 6 languages, killed by the same IED that gave Grace her second Purple Heart. Captain James Wright, 38, team leader, Grace's mentor, made it to hour 12 before hostile fire found him. His last words, "Get home, Grace. Let them what happened here." She told them, filed the after-action report, testified at the classified hearing, received medals she didn't want for surviving when they didn't. And then she'd requested the most anonymous assignment available, admin coordinator, paper pusher, someone who didn't make decisions that got people killed. Grace touched each photograph, a ritual she performed most nights. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." They never answered. They never would. Her phone buzzed. Text message from a number she didn't recognize. "Commander Mallory, this is Lieutenant Amy Chen. I hope it's okay that I got your number from the directory. I wanted to apologize for not doing more today. You helped me when I started here, and I should have stood up for you better. Also, I recorded everything. If you need the footage for any official purposes, I have it. And I just want you to know that I think what you did today was incredibly brave. Not just the shooting, the staying calm, the maintaining protocol, all of it. You're my hero, Amy." Grace read the message 3 times, typed and deleted 4 responses. Finally settled on, "Thank you, Amy. No apology necessary. You did more than most by documenting it. See you at work." Another buzz. Master Chief Vickers. "Grace, forgot to mention, the BUDS candidates who witnessed today are already talking, in a good way. You showed them what real discipline looks like. Several asked if you'd be willing to speak to them about intelligence operations. No pressure, just wanted you to know the impact. Also, Webb and I are getting coffee Thursday morning at 0700 if you want to join. Place off base where we can actually talk. Tom." Grace stared at that message longer. Coffee with people who knew, who understood, who had clearance to actually discuss the things that haunted her. It felt dangerous, opening up, being known. It also felt like maybe Dr. Patterson was right about invisible not always healthy. She typed, "Maybe, let me think about it." Sent it before she could reconsider. Her apartment was quiet, too quiet. She turned on the television for background noise, found a cooking show, let strangers discuss pastry technique while she tried to process the day. At 2100 hours, she attempted sleep, lasted 45 minutes before the nightmares came. Yemen, always Yemen, the smell of cordite and blood, the sound of incoming fire, Nathan's surprised expression when the round hit, Sarah's hand going cold in hers, David's last stand buying them 30 seconds, Maria's body thrown by the blast, James bleeding out while telling her to survive. Grace woke at 0312 hours, sheets soaked with sweat, Heart racing. She grabbed her phone, considered calling Dr. Patterson's. Terrason's crisis line. Decided against it. Instead, she got up, made coffee, sat at her kitchen table reviewing the day with the clarity that insomnia provided. Admiral Lockwood wanted to discuss her future. That meant decisions, changes. The comfortable anonymity of the last 4 months was gone. Now came the question of what she built in its place. Grace arrived at Admiral Lockwood's office at 0855 hours Wednesday morning, 5 minutes early as training dictated. The building was quiet, most personnel still at morning PT or grabbing breakfast. The Admiral's aide, a lieutenant commander with intelligence specialty insignia, looked up from his desk. "Commander Mallory, the Admiral is expecting you. Go right in." Lockwood's office overlooked the training compound. Through the window, Grace could see Bud's candidates running obstacle courses, their movements synchronized and determined. She'd watched them many mornings from her admin desk, admiring their commitment to something larger than themselves. "Commander Mallory," Lockwood said, gesturing to a chair. "Coffee?" "No, thank you, ma'am." "Sit anyway. This isn't a formal meeting." Grace sat, back straight, hands folded in her lap. Old habits. Lockwood studied her for a moment. "I've spent the last 18 hours reviewing your complete file and consulting with Dr. Patterson regarding your treatment progress. I've also dealt with the fallout from yesterday's incident. We need to discuss both." "Yes, ma'am." First, Lieutenant Commander Halstead. He's been formally relieved of instructor duties pending non-judicial punishment under Article 92. The charges include failure to follow security protocols, harassment of subordinate personnel, and conduct unbecoming. He'll face a board of inquiry next week. Grace's expression didn't change. "What's the likely outcome, ma'am?" Letter of reprimand in his service record, loss of qualification as instructor, and reassignment to a staff position away from operational personnel. His career advancement is effectively over. Lockwood paused. "He brought it on himself, but I want you to understand the consequences resulted from his actions, not your response to them." "I understand, ma'am." "Do you? Because Dr. Patterson mentioned you carry significant guilt about outcomes even when you're not responsible." Grace's hands tightened fractionally. "The commander made choices. I don't control those." "Good. Remember that." Lockwood pulled up a file on her computer. Lieutenant Portman and Chief Brennan were also involved. Portman receives 45 days extra duty and mandatory counseling on professional conduct. Brennan gets a verbal warning. Master Chief Vickers noted he showed hesitation and less culpability. "The others." "Brennan tried to stop it near the end," Grace said quietly. "I noticed. That worked in his favor." Lockwood closed the file. "All 3 have been ordered to issue formal apologies. They'll do so this afternoon at 1400 hours in the conference room where this began. You're not required to accept their apologies, but regulations mandate they make them." Grace nodded once. "Now, the more important discussion, your future here." Lockwood leaned back in her chair. "Dr. Patterson says you're in month 18 of 24 in recovery protocol. She's pleased with your progress, but notes yesterday's incident triggered a PTSD episode last night." "How did she—" "Your medical alert device logs usage. She monitors it as part of your treatment." Lockwood's voice softened. "Grace, nobody expects you to be unaffected by what happened in Yemen. You held that position alone for 14 hours while your entire team died around you. That kind of trauma doesn't heal on a schedule." "I'm managing, ma'am." "You are. Better than most would. But yesterday exposed you in ways that complicate your recovery. 18 people now know your background. Within classification restrictions, that information will spread. You'll be recognized, questioned, treated differently." She paused. "The anonymity you've been using for healing is gone." Grace looked out the window at the trainees. "I knew it would happen eventually. I just hoped for more time. I can offer you options. First, transfer to another base, establish new cover, continue your administrative work somewhere you're unknown. Dr. Patterson says you could continue treatment remotely or find a new therapist at the new location. You're suggesting I run? I'm suggesting I can protect your privacy if that's what you need." Grace considered it. New base, new people, start over. Maintain the comfortable distance from who she used to be. It felt like failure. "What's the second option?" she asked. "Stay here. Keep your administrative position, but add an additional role as advisor on intelligence integration, voluntary basis, like duty approved. You'd consult on operational planning when your expertise is relevant, mentor junior intelligence officers, maybe teach occasional classes on special activities liaison work." "That's moving closer to operations, ma'am." "It is, but on your terms, at your pace. You'd maintain your admin work as primary duty, stay close to Dr. Patterson, and gradually reintegrate at a level you're comfortable with." Lockwood met her eyes. "Grace, you have institutional knowledge that's valuable, not just tactical skills. You understand how intelligence supports operations at the highest levels. That's rare. Walking away from it entirely might not serve you in the long term. Or it might be exactly what I need, to not be that person anymore. Are you not that person, or are you just trying not to be?" The question landed hard. Grace didn't answer immediately. "I watched you yesterday," Lockwood continued. "When you were challenged, you maintained operational security flawlessly. When you were forced to demonstrate skills, you performed with discipline and control. Even after revelation, you stayed professional. That's not someone running from who they are. That's someone who knows exactly who they are and doesn't need to prove it." Grace's throat tightened. "5 people died because I made intelligence assessments that put us in that position. 5 people died because enemy forces ambushed your team. The investigation cleared you of any tactical errors. The operation was compromised by intelligence we didn't have, not intelligence you provided. I should have seen it coming. You're not omniscient. You're human." Lockwood's voice carried the weight of someone who'd made similar assessments, lived with similar doubts. "I've read your after-action report 6 times. I've reviewed the classified hearing testimony. You made every correct decision available with the information you had. Your team's death wasn't your fault. Knowing that doesn't change how it feels, ma'am. No, it doesn't. But maybe helping others, sharing what you learned, using your skills to make future operations safer, maybe that gives it meaning." Grace sat in silence for 30 seconds. Outside, a whistle blew. Trainees dropped for push-ups. Life continuing in its rhythms. "I need time to decide," she said finally. "You have until Friday. Think it through. Talk to Dr. Patterson. Make the choice that serves your recovery, not your guilt." "Yes, ma'am. One more thing." Lockwood pulled a folder from her desk. "Amy Chen, the petty officer who documented yesterday's incident. She submitted a request to transfer to intelligence specialty training. Listed you as her inspiration. Her recording has been secured as evidence for Halstead's proceedings, but she wanted you to know she's prepared to testify if needed." Grace felt something unexpected. Not quite pride, maybe hope, that something good could come from exposure. "She's bright," Grace said, "learns fast, makes mistakes but owns them. She'd do well in intelligence work. I'll note your recommendation in her file." Lockwood stood, indicating the meeting's end. "Go home, Grace. Think about what you want, not what you think you should want, what actually serves you." Grace stood, saluted, turned to leave. "Commander, for what it's worth, I hope you stay. We need people like you. People who understand the cost but still choose service." Grace left the office without responding. Walked through the administrative building where personnel glanced at her differently now. Knowing looks. Respectful distance. The invisible woman had become visible. At 1400 hours, she returned to the conference room where it had all started 24 hours earlier. Same table, different atmosphere. Lieutenant Commander Halstead stood at attention, his uniform immaculate but his face haggard. Lieutenant Portman beside him, eyes downcast. Chief Brennan at the end, expression somber. Master Chief Vickers present as witness. Admiral Lockwood observing from the doorway. "Commander Mallory," Halstead began, voice strained, "I owe you a formal apology. Yesterday I accused you of credential fraud, stolen valor, and potential espionage. I challenged your integrity publicly, forced you into demonstrations that compromised your privacy, and created a hostile work environment. I was wrong. My actions were unprofessional, inappropriate, and violated multiple regulations. I apologize without reservation and accept full responsibility for my conduct. The words were clearly rehearsed, probably written by the JAG office. But behind them, Grace saw something genuine. Shame. Not just at being caught, at genuinely understanding what he'd done. "Lieutenant Portman?" Lockwood prompted. "Commander, I participated in harassment and public humiliation. I made assumptions about your capabilities based on your position and appearance. I was disrespectful and unprofessional. I apologize and will work to ensure I never treat anyone this way again." Younger, less polished, but maybe more likely to actually learn. "Chief Brennan?" "Ma'am." Brennan addressed Grace directly. "I followed bad leadership instead of stopping it. I knew better and didn't act. That's on me. I apologize for not showing the respect you deserved, regardless of your background. I should have treated you with basic human decency. I failed that standard." Grace studied each of them. Halstead, whose career was over. Portman, who might salvage something if he learned. Brennan, who'd recognized his failure and named it honestly. "Thank you for your apologies," she said quietly. "I accept them with the understanding that acceptance doesn't erase consequences. You'll each face the results of your choices. But I don't wish you harm. I hope you learn from this." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "I also want you to understand something. Yesterday wasn't about me being exceptional. It was about you making assumptions. Every person you meet might be carrying skills, experience, or trauma you can't see. The admin clerk might be a combat veteran. The janitor
Might have 3 degrees. The quiet person in the corner might be the most dangerous or most valuable person in the room." She looked at each of them in turn. Treat people with respect because they're people, not because you verified they've earned it. Halstead's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Understood, ma'am." "Dismissed," Admiral Lockwood said. The 3 men filed out. When they were gone, Lockwood approached Grace. "Well said. I meant it. I know. That's why it mattered." Thursday morning, 0700 hours. Grace walked into the coffee shop 3 blocks off base, civilian clothes replacing her usual pantsuit. Jeans, plain t-shirt, jacket to hide the tension in her shoulders. Master Chief Tom Vickers and Lieutenant Marcus Webb sat at a corner table, already halfway through their first cups. Both wore civilian clothes too. This wasn't a military meeting. This was something else. "Grace," Tom said, standing. "Glad you came. Wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I." She ordered tea at the counter, paid, joined them at the table. "What is this exactly?" "Honest conversation," Webb said, "off the record, between people who understand classifications and complications." Grace wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "I'm listening." Tom leaned forward slightly. "I've been doing this 28 years. Seen a lot of operators come back from hard deployments. Most struggle. Some break. Few find healthy ways forward." He met her eyes. "You're doing the work. Taking treatment seriously. Staying connected to service in a way you can manage. That's not weakness. That's strength most people don't have. Doesn't feel like strength." "It never does from inside," Webb added. "I did 2 tours in Afghanistan as a SEAL. Nothing like what you experienced, but enough to understand how the mind replays trauma. Enough to know that choosing life over isolation is the harder path." Grace sipped her tea. "Admiral Lockwood offered me 2 options, run or stay. I've been trying to decide which one is recovery and which one is cowardice." "What does your therapist say?" Tom asked. "That either choice can be healthy, depending on my motivation. If I'm running from fear, that's one thing. If I'm choosing distance for genuine healing, that's another. What's your gut tell you?" Grace was quiet for a long moment. "That I'm tired of hiding, but also terrified of being seen." "Those can both be true," Webb said.
The question is which one you let make the decision. I spent 12 years being Commander Mallory, intelligence officer, liaison to special operations, the person who made assessments that put people in harm's way. Then Yemen happened, and 5 people I cared about died because I couldn't predict the unpredictable. She looked down at her tea. For 4 months, I've been just Grace. Anonymous admin. Safe. Small. Unable to hurt anyone because I'm not making decisions that matter. But that's not sustainable, Tom said gently. You've got too much to offer, too much knowledge, experience, perspective. Locking that away doesn't honor your team. It wastes what they died trying to accomplish. Or it prevents me from getting more people killed. You're not omniscient, Grace. You're just trained. There's a difference. A family entered the coffee shop. Young kids arguing about muffin flavors, parents negotiating with tired patients. Normal life. Uncomplicated. The kind Grace sometimes envied. Amy Chen requested intelligence specialty training, Grace said, changing angles. Listed me as inspiration. I barely know her. Helped her a few times with procedures, but she saw something in how I handled yesterday that made her want more. That's impact, Webb said. Quiet leadership. Modeling discipline under pressure. That matters to young personnel trying to figure out who they want to become. I didn't do anything special. I just followed protocols. Exactly. You maintained operational security when it would have been easier to defend yourself. You kept calm when most people would have escalated. You demonstrated skills without arrogance, accepted apologies without gloating. Tom smiled slightly. That's the kind of leadership the Navy needs, not the loud kind, the steady kind. Grace processed that. Leadership. She'd been a leader before, had led teams, made calls, accepted responsibility. Then it had all gone catastrophically wrong, and she'd spent 18 months convincing herself she should never lead anything again. Lockwood wants me to stay, keep my admin position, add advisory role, she said. Consult on operations, mentor juniors, teach occasional classes. Voluntary basis. My pace. That sounds like a reasonable middle ground, Webb observed. It sounds like moving back toward the life that broke me. Or, Tom countered, it sounds like integrating your past with your present in a way that gives you control. You're not going back to full operational tempo. You're choosing when and how to engage. That's different. Grace looked out the window. Base personnel walked past, some in uniform, some civilian. All part of the same mission, just different roles. Dr. Patterson said something similar, that healing isn't about erasing who I was. It's about deciding who I am now. Smart woman, Tom said. She is. Grace finished her tea. I'm supposed to give Lockwood my decision tomorrow. You know what you want to do, Webb said. You're just scared to commit to it. He was right. She did know. Had known since yesterday. Yesterday afternoon, watching those BUDS candidates run obstacles, they were choosing something hard because it mattered. Maybe she could too. If I stay, things will be different, she said. People know now. The anonymity is gone. Different isn't automatically bad, Tom replied. Maybe being known, being seen, maybe that's part of healing too. Grace stood. Thank you for the coffee and the perspective. We're here whenever you need, Webb said, off the record, between friends. Friends. The word felt foreign, but not unwelcome. Grace drove back to base, went to her admin desk, processed supply requisitions with the same careful attention she'd given them for 4 months. But something had shifted internally, a decision crystallizing. At 1500 hours, Amy Chen appeared at her desk, nervous energy radiating. Grace, sorry, I don't know what to call you now. Grace is fine. Okay, Grace, I wanted to thank you for the recommendation you gave Admiral Lockwood and for, everything. Being patient when I screwed up that safe, showing me how to properly handle classified materials. Yesterday, watching you stay calm when they were awful, that taught me more than any manual. Grace looked at this young woman, 24 years old, full of potential, choosing intelligence work because someone had modeled discipline. You'll do well in intelligence specialty, Grace said. You're observant, you learn from mistakes, and you documented yesterday when others just watched. That's good instinct. I want to be like you, competent and calm and unshakable." Grace almost laughed. "Amy, I'm none of those things. I'm functional despite being deeply shaken. There's a difference. But you don't show it. You keep going. Because I have support systems and coping skills and medication and therapy, strength isn't doing it alone. Strength is accepting help." Amy absorbed that. "Can I ask you something? And you can totally say no. Ask. If they approve my training transfer, would you be willing to mentor me? Not officially, just like someone I can ask questions." Grace felt that unfamiliar emotion again. Hope, maybe. Purpose. The possibility that her experience could help someone else avoid mistakes, navigate complexity, find their path. "If I'm still here, yes, I'd be willing." "Thank you." Amy hesitated. "Are you staying? I heard rumors about transfer options." "I haven't decided yet." But she had. She knew it the moment Amy asked about mentorship. Friday morning, Grace arrived at Admiral Lockwood's office at 0900 hours exactly. "Commander," Lockwood said, "your decision?" "I'm staying, ma'am. I'll keep my administrative position as primary duty and accept the advisory role. I'll consult when appropriate, mentor when asked, and teach if I'm capable. On my terms, at my pace. Dr. Patterson approved this? I spoke with her yesterday. She thinks gradual reintegration is healthy if I maintain boundaries and continue treatment." Lockwood smiled. "Good. We'll formalize the arrangement next week. You'll keep your current office, current duties. When intelligence section needs consultation, they'll request your time through proper channels. No pressure, no requirements. You decline anything that exceeds your comfort level." "Yes, ma'am. One more thing. The BUDS candidates who witnessed Tuesday's events requested you speak to them about operational intelligence. Nothing classified, just career path discussion. 30 minutes, voluntary, you can decline." Grace considered it. Speaking to a room full of aspiring SEALs about intelligence work? About liaising with special operations? About paths that led to both achievement and trauma? "I'll do it," she said. "But I want to be honest with them. Not just about successes, about costs too. I wouldn't want it any other way." That afternoon, Grace stood in front of 43 BUDS candidates in a classroom overlooking the obstacle course. Master Chief Vickers introduced her simply. "Commander Grace Mallory, Naval Intelligence, Special Activities Division. She's here to discuss intelligence support to special operations. Listen and learn." Grace looked at their young faces. Most early 20s, a few older. All physically capable, mentally tough enough to have made it this far in training. None of them fully understanding what they were volunteering for. "I'm not going to tell you war stories," she began. "I'm going to tell you about partnership. About how intelligence personnel and operators work together when both sides respect what the other brings. I spent 6 years embedded with units like the ones you're training to join. I loved that work. It also cost me things I'll spend the rest of my life processing." She spoke for 30 minutes. About liaison relationships. About trust built through competence and humility. About intelligence officers who risked as much as operators in different ways. About Yemen, briefly, without classified details. About loss and recovery and choosing service despite scars. When she finished, a candidate raised his hand. "Ma'am, how do you know when you're ready to go back, after something like Yemen?" Grace appreciated the honest question. You might never feel ready, but you can be functional even while healing. The question isn't whether you're undamaged, it's whether you have support systems, coping skills, and honest assessment of your limitations. Recovery isn't linear. Some days are harder than others. You just keep showing up. Another hand, do you regret it? The career, the operations, all of it? Grace thought about her team, their photos on her coffee table, the nightmares that still came at 300 hours, the guilt that therapy helped manage but never fully erased. "No," she said finally. "I regret that they died. I regret that I couldn't save them. But I don't regret the work we did or the choice to serve. Regret would make their sacrifice meaningless. Instead, I try to make their loss mean something by continuing the mission in whatever way I can. The room was quiet. "Thank you, ma'am," the first candidate said. Later, alone in her apartment at 22:30 hours, Grace sat with her tea and her photographs. 5 faces watching her from the coffee table. "I'm trying," she told them quietly, "to make it mean something, to keep going, to be okay with not being okay." They didn't answer. But for the first time in 18 months, their silence felt less like accusation and more like peace. Her phone buzzed. Email marked urgent, classified header. Subject line, request for consultation, active operation. Her hand hovered over it. This was the choice, right here. Open it and move toward reintegration. Delete it and maintain distance. Grace touched the medical alert device in her ear. Still there, still connecting her to support. She opened the email. Brief request for intelligence assessment on Middle East operation. Optional consultation. Her expertise specifically requested, no pressure to accept. She read it twice. Felt her heart rate elevate. Recognized the anxiety response. Used her grounding techniques. Then she hit reply. "I'll review the materials and provide assessment within 48 hours. Please forward classified brief to my secure terminal." Sent. Grace sat back, breathing carefully. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. She'd just chosen forward. Not back to who she was. Forward to who she was becoming. Someone who could be Grace Mallory, admin coordinator who processed supply forms and helped junior personnel. And Commander Grace Mallory, intelligence officer who carried scars and skills and chose service anyway. Both, at the same time, on her terms. Outside her window, Coronado lights sparkled. Base continuing its rhythms. Training happening, operations planning, people serving in 1,000 different ways. Grace was one of them again, not despite her trauma, not pretending it didn't exist, but functioning alongside it, with support and boundaries and the hard-won knowledge that healing and serving weren't mutually exclusive. The nightmares would still come at 3000. Therapy would continue. Some days would be harder than others, but she'd keep showing up. That was the mission now.